Rawlings contributed to the albums Casadega by Bright Eyes, Spocked by Robin Hitchcock, and Heartbreaker by Ryan Adams, with whom he wrote two songs.
Oh well, 2 out of 3 then, bad.
Hey, everybody out there. Happy Friday. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophiles. I'm Andy, and that is John. And today, because it is a Friday, we are going to devote our episode. That wrist is working really well, John. I'm glad to see the WD-40 works. We are going to be devoting this episode to a suggestion made by one of you guys out there in the loyal listening audience. In this case, it will be friend of the show and viewer Arthur. So Arthur has offered up a track for us to check out today, and I believe it came on his on our video. His comment came on our video devoted to the Royal Alberta Advantage. So we've got this track by artists Gillian Welch and Dave Rawlings, and the track is called "Look at Miss Ohio." I went out, found a version of the track that was offered up by Arthur, and it is a live version that you're going to be checking out, John. So brace yourself for some live music. It was a 2004 performance at London St. Luke's, so closer to home for you than it is for me. So please go off, give this thing a watch and a listen, and I'd be eager, and I'm sure Arthur would be too, along with any others out there in the listening audience, to hear what you have to say about this performance.
Okie dokie.
Ohio, she's running around with a rag top down. She says, I want to do right, but not right now. I want to drive to Atlanta and live out this fantasy of running around with a rag top down.
Okay. Yeah, this is great. Really nice venue, it looks like. Fantastic sound. 2 guitars. Yeah, she's got this lovely, quite throaty, resonant acoustic that seems to move like a blanket as she sort of moves and sways and tilts. Sounds great. And then Dave, it's got this interesting guitar with no hole. It's just a piece of wood. I guess all the trickery's in the pickups or whatever. Not being technical. I'm sure Andy will be able to tell us at length. But it sounds really interesting. It sounds a bit more sort of electrified without being totally electric guitar, if you see what I mean. And because of that, it sounds a little bit more brittle. It's got an edge to it, like the notes coming out of it, almost like shards that could easily snap, as opposed to this big blankety sound from the other acoustic. Yeah, really nice. So the immortal lines, "Oh me, oh my, oh," we're introduced to look at Miss Ohio. She's running around with her rag top down. Okay, I won't say the obvious joke. And then really interesting, want to do right, but not right now. Which seems familiar in some way. But yeah, it's sounding really nice. So she's got obviously a very strong voice. And it's got a little something to it as well. A bit behind it, like just a bit of character. I'm struck by. I know I'm waffling. I'm struck by. It reminds me of. So I don't know much about her. There's a woman called Eileen Jewell, and I managed to get one of her albums just by chance. It's the only album of hers I got and listened to. Letters from Sinners and Strangers, and it's fantastic. There's a couple of songs where she has just a little bit more sort of, I guess, old school sass to her voice, and it kind of reminds me in the same way. Her voice doesn't sound the same, but the way it's put across is similar. It's worth checking out. That album, really, really nice. Anyway, this sounds excellent. Let's go back to this.
Right, but not right now. Had your eye
Oh, that was nice.
down his shoulder, the regimental soldier. Mama starts pushing that wedding gown. Yeah, you wanna do right, but not right now. Oh, me, oh my, oh, would you look at Miss Ohio? She's running around with a rag top down. Says I wanna do right, but not right now.
Ooh. Do you hear that? Oh, it's really nice. But it's interesting. The two voices, obviously, he's got a slightly deeper voice than hers, and it starts from a slightly lower place. But they both hit the top of the note, perfect pitch together. It just sounds great. Just a few notes there, running around. I want to do right, but not right now. Yeah, let's just listen to that bit again.
Oh, would you look at Miss Ohio? She's running around with a rag top down. She says I wanna do right, but not right now.
Yeah, it sounded really nice.
I know all about it, so you don't have to shout it. But I'm gonna straighten it out somehow. Yeah, I want to do right, but not right now. Oh, me, oh my, look at Miss Ohio. She's running around with a rag top down. She says I wanna do right, but not right now. Yeah, I wanna do right, but not right now.
Ooh.
Thanks so much.
Oh, that was good, wasn't it? That was really nice. Kind of captivating at the end. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I was quite mesmerized, actually. I think her voice is fantastic. I think their two voices together was really wonderful. And I think his guitar playing was really interesting and quite inventive and sort of brought in other flavors. Yeah, I need to collect my thoughts on this, but really, really impressed. I thoroughly enjoyed that a lot. Let's get back to Andy and find out what the score is.
All right, you've made it back in from London. What did you make of this very folksy kind of throwback track that we listened to here today, John?
Yeah, great venue. You do realize that is the same place as the video for Deanna by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds.
Oh, that's the same. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I didn't. It was also like kind of a different vibe to the two
Yeah, it's a
performances.
stage difference.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't see Gillian singing I'm down here for your soul." But yeah. So yeah, lovely venue. I mean, the stage definitely so completely different atmosphere, but still looks wonderful.
Oh yeah.
And I have to say, as a BBC Four thing that they did back then, great. Like always, BBC, pretty much leads the way in sort of quality and technique for everything outside broadcasting, sport coverage, and music as well. And this sounds fantastic. So yeah, great job done there. So it starts off the two of them, and it starts with a classic line, "Oh me, oh my, oh," which all good songs start that way. And then look at Miss Ohio. It's a good job she didn't come from somewhere else, like Albuquerque. That would have been much harder to start the song that way. Oh me, oh murky. Look at Miss Albuquerque. No. Anyway, so you left in within 10 seconds, you're left in absolutely no doubt as to the quality of Mr. Rawlings' guitar playing and Miss Welch's vocal talents. Both, I mean, and her guitar playing is absolutely fine, nothing wrong with that either. So just, both top draw. She's playing this very resonant, throaty acoustic, and it sounds and kind of sonically moves like a blanket as she's covering her every sway and pitch and tilt, almost like she's a little buoyant ship, the way she sort of moves her shoulders as she's singing. It's quite interesting. Whereas Dave is playing this interesting piece of wood with no holes in it. I'm not an expert, and I'm sure, I said in the action, I'm sure you can explain at length what is going on. But I presume that all the sonic trickery happens in the pickups rather than any resonance, obviously naturally from the body. But the sound out of this guitar is really interesting, and the two of them together, it's really interesting, two different guitars. The sound out of this to me, and I don't know if it's suggested because of what I'm looking at, but it sounds slightly brittle. And I don't mean in a sort of negative way, but the notes coming out of it almost like shards. They're beautiful, but they still have sharp edges which are not yet fettled by experience. So yeah, the two of them together sound great. Gillian mentions obviously this titular character is running around with her rag top down. And now I believe this refers to a convertible motor car rather than some free the nipple protest. So either way, they're both arresting images. And of course, she also then mentions after this the "want to do right, but not right now" refrain, which is repeated throughout the song as a kind of response to the various verses. I have to say, the song itself is not that complicated, and it goes through a very simple structure. But Mr. Rawlings' guitar playing is really interesting. He adds dashes for the first verse. They're just little refinements and filigrees. It's almost a sprinkling of like honky tonk to this folksy number. And there's these coquettish flourishes, which are more appropriate in the bathing suit section of a beauty contest for Miss Ohio, Yeah, they got real sort of like sway to them. Beautiful, really, really fun. Interesting, sorry. And Gillian singing away, and again, she's got real nice quality of voice, yeah, and you get that with many singers, but there's some character behind there as well, vocal charisma, or whatever you call it, and the way she sort of styles into it, I found really quite captivating as well. It reminded me, and there's another little game of here are two things that are not the same, but it reminded me in the way it happens rather than the actual sound of her voice or the music. But there's an artist called Eileen Jewell, and I stumbled across her and one of her albums. I think she's done a few. I've never heard anything else, just this one album by her, and it's really quite wonderful. And there's a song in there called "If You Catch Me Stealing," which has got this sort of, for want of a better word, a bit of sassiness and a bit of knowingness to it. And there's just a slight touch of that in Gillian's delivery to this as well. There's something that's the kind of knowing about the way she's talking about, look at me so high. It's great. And again, really charming, I found. So she mentions, forgive me if this is in the wrong order and everything, but she mentions in one of the verses a regimental soldier and Mama pushing the wedding gown, which is a great couple of lines with very little words that produce images straight away. And again, the but not right now is the appropriate response, and probably the slamming of doors as well. As she's legging it across the car park and away. And then around the 1 minute mark, Dave does this lovely little guitar cameo. It's really pretty, and it kind of, again, it's almost this fragile or brittleness to the structure of it, like it's something made out of crystalline that can break at any point as well. But again, it's really charming. And then we get other sort of musings in the verses, which are all each time is met the response of want to do right, but not right now. We get to the 2 minute mark, so it's Dave time again for another guitar musing, and he does another little cameo. But this time, it sounds like some bandy-legged fella going for a stroll around the arboretum. It really is almost wonky. It's wonderful, and I really like that. And then they start harmonizing, and there was some real, I have to say, some real magic when they do that. Even though Dave begins quite obviously from a lower register starting point, they both hit on certain notes exactly the same pitch, time and time again during the harmonies, and it's quite wonderful. And it's almost like watching like one of those screen things where you get like a sine wave, and you get two different waves, and then they suddenly match right at the peak of the wave, and that's what's happening there. And it sounds fantastic. It really does. There's more repetition of the same things, and at the 3 minute mark, you've guessed it, more Dave guitar accents. Here he comes in, and he's really inventive, actually, considering what they've got is two acoustic guitars. The way he's sort of guitar phrasing is really inventive, and that kind of rows us to shore until the end of the song. So in terms of the song itself, really simple, but I think it was fantastically executed as a live performance. It sounded wonderful. There's some real inventiveness, particularly in his playing. I thought her voice was captivating. Their harmonies were beautiful, and I actually felt, I think around about the halfway point, that the whole thing became quite mesmerizing to me, and I was just completely caught up in it. And in terms of like the subject matter, it's a classic sort of young girl with spirit who doesn't want to be tied down, and I've got time enough to do the right thing later on, sort of thing, but I'm going to live my life now and bounce around and do whatever the hell I like, which is fair enough, and stick it to the patriarchy, why not? So yeah, I really, really loved it. I thought this was a great shout from Arthur. I've heard Gillian Welch's name before, but I couldn't, like, that's as much. I've just heard her name, and I don't know where I've heard it, but I have heard it. So I wasn't even aware what genre she was or anything. And I haven't heard of Dave Rawlings at all. But I thought together they were brilliant. I really, really enjoyed this.
Yeah. Control C, Control V, my opinion. Uh, because everything you said is pretty much how I ingested this as well. I've heard of them, but never heard their music. I will say that Mr. Rawlings looks to be playing an Epiphone Olympic. I think it's an archtop guitar, and he looks like he plays like a flat pick kind of technique on how he plays. So that I think lends itself to the sound that you're getting. I don't know the ins and outs of the 1935 Epiphone Olympic. And maybe I'm assuming that probably the construct of its acoustics come from the F holes rather than the solid, more cavernous, conventional circular hole that you have in an acoustic guitar. And there probably is some fun stuff happening. Maybe he's got some pickups that are doing some things that he's plugged into, but it is a really interesting sound, and it does add to this sort of like I don't know, almost like as far as music the guitar goes, this antiquity version of guitar sound is almost, less bluesy, more country style, like Robert Johnson style of playing and sound to his guitar. And it sounds really, really cool. And it gives this added, there's already this kind of like bygone era sound to this. But I think the choice of instruments help really encapsulate that as well. And it was funny, we do these Friday episodes from a recording standpoint, usually two at a time together. And I swear that I know this one's going to come out first, and the other one that we recorded will come out second. I would venture to say you could probably stumble across these tunes on the same Spotify list of some sort. They're not that far off from each other as far as what they're trying to tap into and sounds and similarities that they have. They don't sound like they're from the exact same time, which is kind of ironic because this, which was more recent, sounds like it was from an era even further back. But there is this folksy denominator that they share, which I thought was interesting, given that we just it's not like we sat down to do Black Sabbath and Gillian Welch and Dave Rawlings, you know what I mean? So it's just interesting that the songs kind of pair well together, if you will. But yeah, I'll get into the artists. Gillian Howard Welch was born October 2nd, 1967, and she is an American singer-songwriter. She performs with her musical partner, American guitarist, singer, and record producer David Rawlings, born December 30th, 1969. Their sparse and dark musical style, which combines elements of Appalachian music, you can definitely hear that in his picking, bluegrass, the same, country and Americana, is described by the New Yorker as at once innovative and obliquely reminiscent of past rural forms, which I think kind of taps into what I was just alluding to, how it sounds like it's from this bygone period. The two met one another at a successful audition for the school's only country band at Berklee College of Music in Boston, not to be mistaken with Berkeley in California. This is a really great music school up there in New England. I've got a couple friends that went there, and a lot of famous people have gone to school at Berkeley up in Boston. Welch and Rawlings have collaborated on 9 critically acclaimed albums, 5 released under her name, 3 released under Rawlings' name, and 2 under both of their names. The duo was nominated for Academy Award for Best Original Song at the 91st Academy Awards for When a Cowboy Trades His Spurs for Wings from the Ballad of Buster Scruggs. In 2020, Welch and Rawlings released All the Good Times Are Past and Gone, parenthetically, which won the 2021 Grammy Award for Best Folk Album. In 2024, Welch and Rawlings released Woodland, which won the 2025, just passed, Grammy Award for Best Folk Album, currently making Welch and Rawlings the only duo to win the award more than once. Some pretty lofty stuff. Welch was an associate producer and performer on 2 songs of the soundtrack to the Coen brothers' 2000 film, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? A platinum album that won the Grammy Award for Album of the Year in 2002. She also appeared in the film attempting to buy the Soggy Bottom Boys record. Welch, while not one of the principal actors, did sing and provide additional lyrics to the Siren song, Didn't Leave Nobody But the Baby. Rawlings contributed to the. I know you're a big, you're a Coen's Brother fan. I know you really like Oh Brother Where Art Thou, so I thought that'd be interesting.
Yeah. We
Rawlings,
thought you were a toad. Anyway.
Those acting classes are paying off, John. You nailed that. Rawlings contributed to the albums Casadega by Bright Eyes, Spocked by Robin Hitchcock, and Heartbreaker by Ryan Adams, with whom he wrote 2 songs.
Oh, well, 2 out of 3 then, bud. Sorry.
His vocal style has often been compared to that of Bob Dylan. He also produced albums by Gillian Welch, no surprise there, Willie Watson, Dolls, and a band I've been wanting to introduce to you. They've been on my list since we started doing this thing, a band called Old Crow Medicine Show. So maybe this will be a prompting for me to dust off a song by then that I'd like to give you. This track recommended to us, Look at Miss Ohio, is featured on on their 2003 release, Soul Journey. On the album, Welch said, I wanted to make it a happier record. Out of our 4 records, I thought this might be the one where you're driving down the road listening to it on a sunny summer day. Rawlings again produced the record. The album also reflected a change in the typically sparse instrumentation. Welch and Rawlings introduced a dobro, violin, electric bass, and drums. Wow. Soul Journey also garnered significant acclaim. John Harris of Mojo magazine described the album as pretty much perfect, and Uncut's Barney Hoskins favorably compared it to Bob Dylan and the band's The Basement Tapes. The Guardian said of her work, Welch strips country back to its spiritual and storytelling roots, and that she has refined her bare and beautiful songs, and on Soul Journey embraces the blues. Loss and loneliness are her closest friends. Upon the vinyl release in 2018, Relics said the album contained some of their most indelible songs. Soul Journey makes it equally hard to tell where the past ended and the present began, or remember why anybody ever thought there was a difference. Will Hermes of Entertainment Weekly wrote that Welch has never sounded deeper, realer, or sexier. However, some have expressed disappointment in the album. Pitchfork described it as a tad raptureless, and others were displeased with the fuller multi-instrument sound. Welch has said in response that on some level it should be a departure from other albums. Everything's not supposed to sound the same. You want it to reflect change and growth. Soul Journey peaked at number 107 on the Billboard charts and reached number 3 for independent albums. AllMusic scored it at 3.5 stars, and Uncut and The Guardian each gave it 4 out of 5 stars, while Mojo scored it a perfect 5 out of 5 stars. The overall Metacritic score currently sits at 78. Writing for AmericanSongwriter.com, Jim Baviglia would provide this in his article titled Behind the Song, Gillian Welch, Look at Miss Ohio. Earlier that year, Welch had released Soul Journey, an album that filled the sound out somewhat, but still relied mostly on her strumming, Rawlings' emotive guitar fills, and a lot of open spaces. And it's hard to argue against that approach when you hear the results, especially on that album's unforgettable opening track, Look at Miss Ohio. If you were only guessing from the song's title, you might expect a condescending look at a beauty queen. For one, the Miss Ohio title seems ceremonial at best, meant to represent the kind of all-American girl of whom everything is expected, with a plausible exception of individualism. And Welch never judges the character, simply telling her story in a fashion that's so economical, it's practically minimalist. Yet she says all she needs to say. So, speaking of all she needs to say in those lyrics, let's jump in them. Oh mio mio, look at Miss Ohio. She's a running around with her rag top down. She says, I want to do right, but not right now. Gonna drive to Atlanta and live out this fantasy, running around with a rag top down. Yeah, I want to do right, but not right now. Had your arms around her shoulder of a regimental soldier, and mama starts pushing that wedding gown. Yeah, you want to do right, but not right now. Oh my, oh, would you look at Miss Ohio? She's a running around with a rag top down. She says, I want to do right, but not right now. I know all about it, so you don't have to shout it. I'm going to straighten it out somehow. Yeah, I want to do right, but not right now. Oh my, oh, look at Miss Ohio. She's a running around with a rag top down. She says, I want to do right, but not right now. Oh, I want to do right, but not right now. So again, I'm going to quote Baviglia in the article I cited earlier, as I think he addresses the lyrics and the meaning fairly well. Listeners might interpret this song differently. Such is the beauty of Welch's construction, and it allows for multiple takes. Rawlings certainly offers his own commentary with his simple, unshowy playing that nonetheless suggests all kinds of emotional avenues, which is right in tune with the less is more approach of the lyrics. He would add, the last verse hints at some kind of trouble that Miss Ohio has encountered, a jam from which she cannot extricate herself. She insists that she can do so without any help, thank you. I know all about it, so you don't have to shout it. I'm going to straighten it out somehow. You can decide for yourself how deep that trouble is and if she'll indeed set it right. Welch seems okay with it no matter how it turns out. So yeah, it's a very cool song, and I love the fact that it's kind of I don't know, it touches on this kind of like women empowerment and the like unsolicited, unwanted expectations that are placed on women, especially in these rural, small town, probably socially conservative areas that want to confine women to the ideals of their form of tradition in those areas. So yeah, I'm glad that she kind of like punched back at those expectations, while, like they mentioned, kind of leaving it open enough for some interpretation, which I think makes it easier for the listener to relate to, because you can cater your own narrative to this loose structure of a narrative found in the song. So yeah, this is a lot of fun to listen to, man. As rootsy and as Americana as it probably gets. I think you made a joke about Greenwich Village in our last recording. I could totally see this fitting in during that time and with that crowd. Hell, even the pushback about adding drums and a few electronic instruments was a bit too much, a bridge too far for some fans, which we saw play out around the same time with a certain musician who recently just had a biopic made of him. So,
Judas.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. And I gotta say, really appreciated your reaction and feedback. I thought it was really insightful, John, and I thought it was an even better shout by our buddy Arthur out there. This is a beautiful song, man.
Yeah, it was. That's a real. I'll have to check out some more stuff by these two, because I think there's some something special going on there.
Yeah, it is, and it's such an interesting dynamic and relationship they would have. At least it seems from the outside looking in, kind of having learned a bit more about them. This sort of amicable trade-off of collaborating 50-50 on albums that might fall under his name or her name, and their collaborative efforts to put out stuff under both their names. And even some of the other artists that they've worked with, it's really impressive. And projects too, film and the like. So yeah, and good films at that. So
yeah, that's Oh Brother, where are thou? Just all ticks the boxes. Now you said it. I was like,
right. Yeah. So anyway, thanks a lot, John, for giving this a listen. Again, Arthur, thank you so much for offering up a great tune for us to listen to. We really love doing this episode. Everybody out there in the listening audience, please let us know what you think of this kind of duo and their output. If there's other stuff that we should perhaps check out by them on the channel that you would recommend, or if this was your first time listening to them, how you absorbed them and experienced this track and live performance, much like John and I had discussed here on this episode. We'd love to hear back from you. If you have a track outside of these two that you'd love to listen to. It doesn't matter. Feel free to drop it down in the comment field. We love hearing from you guys. Also, think about liking, sharing, and or subscribing. It really helps us here at the channel. We do appreciate it. We don't ask for a cent from your wallet, but if you could drop a couple seconds to give a thumbs up or a share or anything like that, we really, really would appreciate it. So thank you so much. And hopefully John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next installment of the Audiophiles. See you later, guys.